Hello, Lauren here with Lauren Elizabeth Animal Art, and I'm on day 322 of my 365 days of color. Now, the pet winner for this month's tutorial is Finn, the Silken Windhound. Finn has recently found his forever home with Kelly and her son Tyler, who battles Asperger's, and this dog has been such a godsend for them. Now, in this beginner level tutorial, I'll not only share how I paint full body dog portraits, but I'll also share some super helpful color tips, such as how to choose and place background colors, how to balance a painting with color, and how to spot value using a grayscale. All right, guys, let's get started. So you can access Finn's downloadable Traceable in a link down below, or if you'd like to access my entire library of pet and wildlife tutorials, guides, my pet portrait commission course, and my creative color guide, that's all in the online Animal Art Masterclass. And guys, I recently had to consolidate this course into one. It's no longer separated into tiers. Both my children have been very sick, which is why I've also reduced the price. All right, I'm gonna start mixing up our colors for the background. We always wanna work on the background first if we can help it. And the colors I'll use is pale yellow. You can also use cadmium yellow. And so I'm gonna use more of my bright aqua green on this side so that it doesn't overpower the darkness in Finn on the right. So I'm gonna add a good amount of white to that. My first color tip has to do with the background. So if you have a dark colored dog, I recommend a light or medium colored background. If you have a light colored dog, the opposite applies. So use a dark or darker medium value background. Now Finn has both white and dark gray in his coat here. So for pets with a mix, that's why I'm doing a darker left side blending into a lighter right side for my background. And I'll also create a mixture with more yellow and a little bit less of my bright aqua green and a good amount of white. Now definitely make sure you mix up enough of these background colors. We have quite a bit of space to cover around Finn. Now my next color tip is to always go in with some kind of color plan. You can either create a mock-up painting where you have the entire painting planned out, or you can at least have the main colors of the animal, the connected parts, and the background picked out. And going with somewhat of a Christmas theme here, I wanted Finn to be wearing a red bow tie, and the complementary color of red is green, so I went with a lime green and turquoise combo. You don't want those background colors to compete with the pet, you want them to complement them. Background colors that don't hide the pet, but completely draws attention to it. All right, and where they meet is where I'm going to mix these two colors together to create a whole separate paint mixture. Okay, so I'll pick up a little bit of that and a little bit of this green, and this is going to be our joiner color. So once you've got that all mixed up, I'm going to grab our largest brush. This is my Arteza size 11 flat brush. I only use Arteza brushes now, and I'll make sure it's clean and damp, and I'm going to start on the left side and move up and around to my right. Now, as you're painting, don't forget about your sides, and also there's 3 little tiny gaps within Finn's body that we also want to get with this color, and for that I'll be switching to a smaller detail brush. Now, I always like to connect my paintings to a scripture verse, and for today's verse, it comes from Ephesians 4:32. Always be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other just as Christ forgave you. Now, if you'd like to learn how to paint your specific dog and or accept pet portrait commissions, I've created the online animal art masterclass partly for this reason. The other reason is animal art therapy was a tool I used in my own battle with addiction and depression and anxiety, and it's still to this day something I use to manage stress. And for the past 3 years, I've been adding all kinds of acrylic pet and wildlife tutorials, guides, business content, and more. And I've really been so extremely blessed to meet and serve other hurting artists going through similar mental struggles. So if this would bless you or a friend, I have links to the online animal art masterclass down below. All right, guys, let's get back to this background. All right, I got some dog jokes for you. The first one is, what do chemist dogs do with their bones? They bury them. What kind of dog chases after the color red? A bulldog. And last one, what do you call a very large dog that meditates? An aware wolf. Now, if you'd like to nominate your pet for the next painting tutorial, list in the comments down below the name, breed, and something special about your pet. Now, if you're chosen, it's important that you look at my reply because I'll respond with my email and I'll request 3 photos and 3 videos from you of that pet that I can place in the video. Within a month or 2, I'll create a colorful painting tutorial, and the painting itself will become a charity donation. And this month we're donating to the famous Fido Rescue. I just love and support this no-kill shelter in Chicago. And if you'd like to claim any of these paintings or make a donation to this rescue, I have a link to that page down below. So I'm going to switch to a small, tiny little brush because there's one, let's see, there's 1 and 2 and 3 areas, little tiny areas where this color will go. So with my 4-0 liner brush, I'm going to paint this in. Oh yeah, there's actually 4 areas. This little one here, tiny little spots, and then right here, and last but not least, right here. All right, so I'm going to wash out my brush because I want to move to this color here, the mix between these two. And we just want to start working that in about this much, and then we're going to fill in the rest with our key lime color. I don't want this sopping wet, I want it damp. So I'm making sure it's clean and damp. That way it can push that paint around a lot easier than if it was dry or soaking wet. All right, so I want to blend this area. So what might happen is you paint this much of the canvas and then you go back to that color a little bit and then blend that wet into wet. And then I pull off some of that paint or even wash it out again. And then we go back to this original color, moving to the right and at the top. And now for this color. And again, I'm going to blend it wet into wet. My next color tip is when it comes to combining darker colors with lighter ones, you'll have to be careful because those dark colors very easily overpower the lighter ones. So you'll need so much more of your lighter color to lighten up those dark ones. So that's why I ended up going backwards. So it might be easier to start with your lighter background colors if you're doing a combo like this, and then blend into those darker colors. Now I'm going to use a separate brush just to touch up these areas where I join the colors. I'm using a 5-0 angle brush because I want to work this before it dries. It's like impossible if it's dry or tacky, so you want to do it now while the paint is still wet. Doesn't have to be perfect. See how I'm moving my brush back and forth, going back to this color. And then any other little white areas that I can fill in that look really thin with paint. Another color tip for you when it comes to using acrylic paint. The color that we see while the paint is wet on our paint palettes will look very different than when the color has dried on our canvas. They will dry darker, and this is why it's so very important. I really recommend you always paint in natural light. Now, if you're painting at night, I recommend having a bright white light that's not directly hitting your canvas, but definitely lighting up the room so you can see all parts of it. All right, so we're gonna let our canvas sit for about 5–10 minutes to dry while we mix up the colors for our bones. I'm mixing up a lighter lime green than what we used on the right side of our canvas. So that's a very small amount of turquoise, or the bright aqua green, a lot of yellow, and a lot of white. Make sure you get a good amount because we're gonna be doing lots of bones, and just in case we have to go over any of the bones for a second coat, we wanna make sure we have enough. So let's start with our darker color. We'll start on this side. I'm going to move to my size 0 round brush. And if you watch me, these bones are a lot easier than you think, but I think the trickiest part is having them come out behind Finn. So I'll show you what I mean. My brush is already, I cleaned this brush off, so it's already pretty damp. I'm going in with straight bright aqua green. All right, and I'm just gonna create 2 lines. I'll start with a bone from behind Finn. And then connecting those 2 lines will be the number 3. And this is why it's so important to make sure your brush is clean and damp so that it's not sticking to your canvas, and also you don't have water dripping onto your canvas. And of course, when we're doing the full bone, we'll have 2 3s on both sides. And I'm gonna place these going in different directions, spaced out evenly from one another. What I'm also trying to do is to keep these bones looking symmetrical. So I'll keep the width and the length about the same, while also keeping the actual lines of the bones about the same width too. Now, my method for keeping details looking clean and precise is 1, the second I start to notice my lines getting thicker, which means the paint is drying to my brush, I'll wash out my brush thoroughly, dab it off on my cloth, and pick up more of the paint. Or 2, if it ever feels like the brush is being pulled as I'm painting or sticking to my canvas, that's again when I wash out my brush thoroughly, dab it, and then pick up more paint. Now, on that note, nothing is perfect, and the ugly phase is a beautiful thing, okay? It's something we have to allow to happen in order to get our masterpiece. Something that helps me overcome that critical voice when I'm painting is I try to make it fun and my own. So here's some ideas to, instead of using bones, you could also make this more of a Christmas theme, and you could create maybe red and white candy canes or mistletoe or even green mini Christmas trees. You could also create tennis balls. Try not to focus so much on being so rigid, but be playful and be accepting of experimenting with color and designs. All right, I've got some super corny dog jokes for you. What do you get when you cross a dog with a lion? Well, you won't be getting any mail, that's for sure. Okay, this one's a really good one. What do you get when you cross a dog with an egg? A poached egg. I think I'll stop there and now move to my light green for this side. So I'll start around right here. Like right in this area is where I'll keep this lime green. Now you may need more coats over this than we do that side because it's just lighter over top such a dark green. Now, two things I want to note here. I do eventually decide to bring up another bone above this one because it's a bit too much of a gap. And then the other thing is I end up, not only do I add a second coat to these bones, but I also bring in more white into this color. So if your bones are just getting lost in the turquoise, make sure you add a little bit more white. Now you can of course add a second coat like I do after this, but you may not even have to if you add white now. All right, so here is where I then add more white to this color, and then I go over a second coat over all these left side bones. So you can do that now if you're needing a second coat. Otherwise, you can skip to the next steps. And that's at time marker 34 minutes and 20 seconds. All right, so to complement these greens that we have in our background, I thought of a red, somewhat a little bit of pinks in there for the bow tie that Finn's wearing. So I'm just gonna mix up this permanent red with a little bit of white and yellow. So that's more red than yellow and a little bit of white. Give it just a slight pink tone and even a little bit of orange in there too. All right, so I'm gonna grab my, let's see here, I think a little bit smaller brush. I just love my detail brushes. I'll go to my size 0 spot brush. I'll use this little brush. You're welcome to use a larger one to paint in the entire bow tie, the 2 bows and the knot in the middle. And we want to then, while it's still wet, go in with some of the shadows. So that's important. Our next step, we'll need this paint to be wet, so just keep that in mind. You know, maybe I'll use this brush for the left side going around his snout, and then I'll go to a larger brush for the other side. And try not to cover up this tiny little bit of turquoise that we have in the corner. Okay, so I'll switch brushes just a little bit bigger to fill in that other side. I'll go to my size 1 round brush. Do you know another color that would look great is a very bright pink, or like a peach with more yellow and pink combined. Those are colors that would definitely work well with these greens in our background. You could even just go orange. Oh no, silly me. You could even just go orange because we have blues in this green. Oh well, I'll just be able to freshen that paint up in the background. Let's see if I can try and match this background color. I'm going to wash up my brush and get that lime green again. Oh good, lovely, my paint is still wet. Perfect. So I don't even have to remix it again. Well, isn't that just super convenient? Now, what you can do, instead of just using black to add the lowlights, you can go in with a dark green because that's red's complement. It darkens, especially if you're using a dark green, that will work. But I'm going to stick to our minimal paint palette, so I'm just going to grab black with a little bit of white and my size 0 spot brush again. I'll first outline the knot on both sides, and then coming out from there, I'll create lines that indicate the folds. And then what I'll do, if you watch me, I'm just going to create these lines that show like a fold in the bow. I'm going to create 2 on one side, and then I think I'll just do 1 line on the other. Oh, there's a little bug on my painting. Oh, Mr. Bug. Don't. He's so little. And I am just blending that into the red. So 2 lines on this side, I just blended out this line on that one, and there's our shadow. And you know what? I almost forgot. I'm gonna go back to this color because we have a little strap for the bow that we wanna make sure we include. Just the tiniest little bit. And you know what? It would make sense to actually, instead of this being our turquoise here, let's see if that would make sense. Yep. I didn't even go over the entire little turquoise right there. I just created another strap that connects behind the bow. You know, I knew something was missing from my display here, so we finally got our candle back. Now, if you look closely at Finn, from being that we're so far away from him, we can't really make out the eye color, and because of the light source, we really don't have much light on this side, but we have lots hitting his side left. So what we're gonna do first, I'm gonna use, again, my Sienna spot brush. I'm going to outline the eyes, but fill in most of it because we really can't see much inside those eyes. And that leads me to my next color tip. When painting the eyes of the animal, if you cannot see the eye color, the iris inside the eye because it's either so dark or just something's covering it up, whatnot, I say don't paint it in. Don't make up the color. If you see a hint of that color, yes, paint it in. But if not, I say your best bet is to just paint it in black or a dark brown. And you just want to focus on the eyes. Don't worry about anything around the eyes. We're just gonna focus on the eyes and then what's inside of them. What's inside of them is a little bit of gray on this right eye. So if you watch me, I'm just gonna cut around like that because he's looking to the right a little bit, because we have a little bit of that gray inside that right eye, and then I'll fill in the inside to the right of it. And then what we have on this side is a very strong highlight. That's another indicator that helps us know where that light source is just the strongest highlights in the eyes. So I'll make sure that the far end of that is rounded, and then right in that white area, we'll add a pretty strong light gray. Next, what I'll do is while I let those areas dry on the eye, I'm gonna move on to the nose. And I'm gonna end up using a lot of the black actually on this nose. I'll just outline the nose first. And because of the top of the nose is so light, I'm just gonna outline the bottom of it, and we'll mix up a different gray for the top of it. But if you watch me, the front of the nose that curves down and around is going to be black. And it actually kind of curves like this. It curves like this in the front, and then another curve right here. And then I'll mix up a gray. So I'll add some white into that. This is going to be a dark gray. which I'll fill in the rest of the top of the nose. Oop, that's a little too dark. I'm gonna add more white. And we can continue using this gray because it's the perfect dark gray for this little part of the eye, which is not getting much light. And then to move on to our lighter grays, I'm going to add more white to this. I have this tiny little area with a light gray. And then I'm just going to go dab, dab, dab right here in the corner. Now this isn't quite light enough, but this will be the base for where we place an even lighter gray. But we can add this to the left side of the nose. Still a little wet, so we may have to wait a little while. But there's a highlight just on the left side of that nose, right there. If you noticed, I pulled it up too a little and blended it into that dark gray on the top. Now, if your gray kind of bled into the outline of the eye like mine did, I'm just going to touch it up with black. And now what I'll do with a clean, damp brush, I'm going to go in with just white. This is light enough just to go with white. Normally I go with a light gray, but this is pretty darn light. I'm going to go over that highlight once again. All right, so let's work out from the eyes, because I see a little bit of a marking, a dark, almost medium gray marking. So I'm going to go back to this gray, I'm going to add more black to it to create right there in between a dark gray and a medium gray. Just not black and not white, but right there in between for a medium gray. And I'm going to outline this eye first, because I see just a dark gray outline around there. And then out beyond that, below here is white. Now I'll add more black to that gray because, again, our lack of light on the right side, we want this darker. I'm gonna fill in a good amount of this dark gray around the right eye. In fact, could go a little darker than that. All right, this dark gray climbs down along the right side of the snout. Just a thin little line, and then comes up around the brow of the eye. And we can save this gray, this dark gray, for a small little area on the other side, on the other brow. It's like right above that light gray border. You see that, those two dark gray areas? All right, creatives, we have reached the end of part 1. If it's not already up, part 2 is also linked down below, but if not, it'll come very soon. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you need any help. Have a wonderful day. Bye.